nothing better than being a Raider fan and walking out of a stadium with a victory.
He is one of those guys that I would hate to have played against because he's not going to give up.
As he grabbed Gardner Minshew and said, "We got your back." That was leadership.
That black hole, we're counting on you. We're going to kick off right to you. Wherever we go, we're going right to you guys.
Welcome into Raiders Rundown, JT, as we are underway and ready to roll today. And we appreciate you coming in. We got a lot to cover today. The head coach of the Silver and Black, Antonio Pierce, Lincoln Kennedy, Q Myers will be our insider today. He's going to come up here in studio. We got Levi Edwards and former Raider Frosty Rucker. So we are going to rock here in the first hour as we are live on the Raiders YouTube platform. We appreciate that. Hour number 2 on my YouTube at JT the Brick YT, and we are live from Raiders headquarters, where this is a big week as the Cleveland Browns are coming to town on Sunday for a 1:25 kickoff at Allegiant Stadium, and what feels to me like a must-win game after the performance the Raiders put up against the Carolina Panthers. Carolina won that game, and the Raiders are back to work, and they're literally back to work today as the coach is meeting the media downstairs and sitting down with me, and then a big practice, I would assume, coming up here the next day or two to get this team ready as they're banged up. So is Cleveland. Injuries are a big part of my open here as we get going. Before we look back at the loss in Carolina, this team now has to step up. This team has to play their best football game in a long time, dating back to last year if they're going to win. They can't show up. They can't go through the motions. They can't play an average game. They can't show up for one quarter and win. That ship has sailed. They are due to play a great game. They have to flip the script and play an unbelievable football game. We talk about the loss for 2 or 3 days and then we move on because this is a business. This is professional football, not high school football. And these pros in the building have got to be at their best this week. They're going to be guys that have to play hurt through injury. There are other guys like Marcus Epps who are lost, like Malcolm Kuntz, and everybody's going to have to step in and do their job and play their role. I think Eric Allen made a great point this week when we were on the TV Monday with Rich Gannon, and you were able to see that on YouTube. The practice squad players this week and the reserves have to have an unbelievable week. They have to portray that they're the Cleveland Browns in practice, and they got to put their hands on the Raiders starters, and they got to be physical, and they got to be angry, and they got to play like they're proven to take the job of the starters. Everything has to step up now. Everything has to go to the next level. Now, we had a warning sign about this in Costa Mesa because we're in the middle of trying to figure out who the quarterback was going to be. And Max Crosby was wrecking every practice. That's old news. We know that. It wasn't as efficient as it could have been. And the rest of the league, have you looked around at the rest of this league and have seen all the injuries? Look at the Rams and the Niners. Look at all these teams that have 7 or 8 players on IR. The Raiders don't have that many players injured, but the injury report concerns me, and it has for the last couple of weeks. So now who's ever the next man up, all hands on deck, whatever cliche you want to use, it better be ready to go. The Raiders had a really bad loss at home. I think it's the worst loss that I've seen in Las Vegas since they become the Las Vegas Raiders. You would think they'd show up after that performance and put together an unbelievable game. And Cleveland is just as desperate as the Raiders, maybe more, because Cleveland was picked to be a playoff team this year and maybe go deep into the playoffs out of the tough AFC North. If they lose this game, they're 1-3, and Pittsburgh's 3-0. Cincinnati is 0-3. Look around at football, and all the teams that are in the same boat as the Raiders are worse off. Jacksonville hasn't won a game this year. There are a lot of teams going through tough times. I think the Raiders are one of them, and 2-2 would look amazing around here. If the Raiders can walk off the field Sunday afternoon 2-2, I think everything can mellow out, everything can reset. Everybody can take a deep breath and then get ready because the first quarter of the season almost will be done, and I think anybody would take 2-2 when that schedule came out. But this is not going to be easy because we knew Carolina was coming in highly motivated as we begin with some of the plays from last week. Andy Dalton came to town. He was ready to play. I sat in this studio and told you the Red Rocket would be ready to go. I didn't think he would have this great of a game. As he opened up, the game went down the field and scored.
Crowd trying to make noise. 3 on the play clock. Dalton clapping his hands, gets the snap, pump fakes to the left, throws it out to the right. It's caught by Hubbard at the 10, makes a move, gets a block, hit at the goal line, falls forward. Touchdown, Carolina.
That was really concerning to me at the time because it was too easy. You know, this is the first time Dalton's playing with this group. You know, I'm not saying you got to have a 3 and out, but you got to get him off the field before he got to midfield. He carved the Raiders up on that opening drive, and that was a concern. But Minshew came back later on in the first quarter as the clock was winding down, took a deep shot to Trey Tucker.
There it is from Andre James. Gardner looks right, he pumps. Now he looks to the left, takes a shot, down the middle of the field. Open Tucker, makes the grab at the 30, and he's brought down at the 25-yard line. They've been waiting for Trey Tucker to break loose, and boy did he ever. That's a pickup of 56 yards. Raiders are trying to go fast, Link. They don't want Carolina to challenge this. They're up under center. Minshew wants the snap. He has it. He turns. Madison trying the middle. He's met at the hole. He's at the 1. And he's pushing. He's pushing. No signal yet. Still no signal. Touchdown Raiders.
That was a really big moment in the game because at the end of the first quarter, it's tied at 7. And considering the way the game started, that was a big deal. Great call by Jason Horowitz on that. So the Raiders got back into the game, and it was tied at the end of the first quarter, which was pretty good. I mean, the way the Raiders were playing defensively, to have that game tied up was very important, but after that, it got pretty ugly. And after that, it was all Carolina, and Carolina's running attack when they needed to move the ball down the field was pretty important, and they were able to get some things going. For the Raiders were struggling to run the football. Zamir White really couldn't get going.
Minshew out of the gun, 3rd down and 7. They hand it off to Madison through the middle at the 40. He's keeping the legs churning, but he's driven to the turf at the 39. And like that, Harris made the tackle, but that play call makes you think that they were going for it on 4th down.
4th down territory, no doubt about it. Absolutely 4th down territory.
Down to 9 on the play clock. Snap to Minshew, 4th down and 10. Pressure up the middle to Bowers at the 35, and it's broken up and knocked away. Tried to find the rookie, and Mike Jackson knocked it away for a 4th down Carolina stop. Raiders still unable to get a 4th down conversion yet this season.
All right, so that wasn't good there. You heard the crowd. Some boo birds came out there. You know, they ran it 3 times in a row, and then on that pass play, I didn't think that was a great decision. Great throw into coverage there, and the Raiders are out, and they turn the ball over at that time. That can't happen again. If you're going to commit to the run on 3 plays in a row, you just can't run it into the pile up the middle and go for it on 4th down. And that was the moment in the game where I think the game was kind of over. At that point in time, a lot of the air left the building there, and people couldn't believe the play calling there. But the Raiders were still trying to establish the run, which is something they want to do here in the first quarter of the season. We're only talking the 3rd game of the year. They're not going to abandon the run. Everybody's been calling me on X, on Twitter, saying, well, we got to abandon the run. You don't abandon the run in the NFL. You might get into a game where it's not working, and then 3rd or 4th quarter you switch to an up-tempo passing game. But this organization's got to run the football, and they tried there, and it didn't work. And then Dalton came back to Thielen, who made an unbelievable catch on this play.
3-step drop. He's hopping in the backfield. Takes a shot towards the end zone for Thielen. Reaches the hands up. Brings it in at the goal line. Touchdown, Carolina. Adam Thielen made the grab. He's grabbing his right leg. He's injured in the end zone, but he caught it first for a Carolina touchdown here late in the 2nd quarter.
That was just great football there. The coverage was decent. The throw was perfect. The catch was even better. So Thielen made a great play there, but the Raiders got beat over the top. Jack Jones has been beat a few times this year. They got to clean that up. I mean, other receivers are better than Thielen, and he's a good one, and they're going to attack, and they're going to take their deep shots into the end zone. But then we get back to the running game again in the 3rd quarter as the Raiders are trying to establish the run and get it going, and it just wasn't there.
He is on the right side of the line. Jadeveon Clowney standing over him. It's a run play to start. Zamir White picks his way to the outside, and an ankle tackle by Shaq Thompson got him at the 27. And like, you know, the offense had 97 yards on the touchdown drive. They started on their own 3. It was the 2nd drive of the game. Adams and Myers tap each other on the far side to try the middle, and there's just nothing there. And you hear the crowd because they've seen it. Deshaun Robinson was pushing forward, and he was pushing the defensive lineman with Jadeveon Clowney. They got to find the playmakers here. Brock Bowers had 1 catch for 21 yards. Devontae Adams had 2 catches for 21 yards. They're both out to the left along with Jacoby Myers. Panthers showing blitz. Here, they back out of it. Minshew set to throw, steps up, taking a shot. Deep down the field for Tucker. He dives, and he can't grab it on the Panthers 30.
All right, so those who are watching and seeing the plays, and you take a look at that on YouTube, for those who are listening on radio, we're at a point now where we're trying to figure out the scheme. And I'm going to talk about that with the coach who's coming up in a bit. We're going to talk about how do they get the running game going. Whatever they decide to do, they have to do it intensely, violently, and different. It's not working. So if you want to run zone technique or you want to run straight at people, figure it out and do it better. And I think that's the point of this week. You know, being around here this many years, I know the difference between a really good practice and a walkthrough. As I bring in the great Lincoln Kennedy, one of the great Raiders of all time. And Lincoln, you're in there with Jason, and the running up the middle into the pile wasn't working. But I know from talking to you so often that you can't abandon the run 2 to 3 games into the season. But why are you seeing it this way? Why isn't it working still?
Well, because you still haven't confirmed an identity. If you're the Raiders right now, JT, you think about it. This offensive line combination, and of course we've seen a little bit of a change this past game with Carolina because Glaze came in for Mumford on injury. They haven't played together. It takes some time to get the chemistry. And no, you're absolutely right, JT. You can't truly abandon the run. I know the Raider Nation is frustrated. Hell, I'm frustrated. I know you're frustrated. We've got to watch it and we've got to analyze this and break it down. The thing is that the only way that the Raiders are going to get better by running the football is going out there and running the football. And I know it seems like it doesn't make sense. The fact is that these guys have got to learn how to play together because they haven't played together. This combination didn't play together through the preseason. There are some nuances, some delicacies that have to be understood that only comes with time. And you can't practice full speed, so you only have games to worry about. Now, give the other teams credit. They're making adjustments to what the Raiders are trying to do, but if you load them up and you try to jumble or go big formation, other teams are going to do it. The Raiders just don't have that push from their offensive line. If you try to spread them out, then it's a lot of cutoff angles. The Raiders just haven't had that much success finding holes in the interior that way as well.
So considering guys are banged up, you mentioned Mumford. It doesn't look like Colt Miller is at 100%. Right. What do you do? I mean, there's a walkthrough, then you get a padded practice. We've been talking all week. I'm going to reference Eric Allen who said it. You know, you got to have a hard practice this week where the practice squad players are acting like they're the Cleveland Browns and they're going up to your face mask. They're hitting you late. I mean, we got to get nasty around here because it isn't going to be fixed on game day without padded practices. What is your suggestion on getting this offensive line up to speed in the building in Henderson?
Well, I've said it for the last couple of weeks. I think you simplify the matters as far as the run game. You simplify it and say, look, we've got 4 runs. This is what we're going to do. We're going to run them right. We're going to run them left. We're going to get good at running these 4 runs, whatever your staple runs can be. And you make them those are your main go-tos. That's what you do when you want to set an attitude. And what it does is it instills in your players, especially your offensive line. If they call 14 blast, I know they're coming my way. We mean business. That's sort of what you have to have. This team doesn't have it right now. If you look at the identity, you asked about the identity, you're going to talk about the defense. Well, here's the thing. Last week, we saw how the defense took a big kick in the side because Max Crosby wasn't 100%. And he didn't have that devastation that he's did and that he had, or the effect that he had in the previous games. So someone else needs to stand up. And now we're seeing the injuries start to kick in like we always see every year. There is parity around the National Football League, but this team should feel embarrassed because last week's performance against Carolina wasn't very good.
Yeah, we love talking X's and O's with you because you want to clean this up and get it done. And the quality of the player out there, how they feel, how they're able to practice, what you're able to do with the defense. Max can't go 100% at practice,
right.
So you're not going to get an authentic feel for what's going to happen coming up with the Cleveland Browns. But, Link, what I think is the most important part going into the Cleveland Browns as we turn the page is whatever is not working, I don't know where we're at. You're looking at 1-3 if you don't win this game. Whatever they're doing right, and I got some stats here, they're 5 of 7 in the red zone. The passing game from Minshew at times looks good. We know what Bowers can do and Devontae can do. We don't know what Zamir and Alexander Madison can. So I just think the scheme, at least for 1 week, would be please go with your strengths of this passing game and hope the passing game could bail out the running game.
Well, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to open it up a little bit more to more intermediate and long passing plays, in my opinion. And the reason why I say that is because now you've got teams that are going to make the adjustment. You're going to do a lot of things like the Raiders do. They're going to press the receivers to take the short throws away. They're going to play up close on a flare half coverage to take those arrow routes of your backs and your check down routes, what we've seen in the last couple of games. Key teams that are keying on them, and they're daring them to throw down the field, because they know they don't have a consistency or an overall comfort with the offensive line as far as setting up the field to throw down the field. They're going to have to take some more chances, because a lot of the short throws that we've been seeing in the last 3 games aren't going to be there.
Yeah, Tucker and Myers had big games. 7 for 96 for Trey Tucker. Yeah. That's a big performance there. 13.7 was the average. And Jacoby Myers, 7 receptions, 62 yards, 8.9, and a touchdown there. So we know that Bowers has had a couple of big games. And then the looming question, as we always say, Lincoln, every week, Devontae. There's so much noise in the national media about Devontae. There's none coming from Henderson in this building and Devontae when he goes on podcasts, whatever he does. So Devontae still leads the team with 18 receptions, but what's looming there heading into week 4 is 1 touchdown. 1 touchdown for Devontae is never satisfactory. So do you expect we see a heavy dose of Devontae coming up here?
Well, it's a conscious effort to try to get him the football, but here's the smart thing I would say, JT, you don't force it. If he's double covered or it's not open, don't force it. The last thing you want to do is create turnovers because you're having a hard time moving the ball around. You have other options. Now, whether you call plays specific for a player to shine is up to is up to Getsy and how he calls his offense. But I will say this: you don't force the ball to Devontae. If he's covered, he's covered. Go somewhere else.
Okay, let's move to Cleveland. They're decimated on the offensive line. 3 players left the game. One of their best went on IR. So they're banged up. Everybody is focusing on the Raiders' injuries, which are kind of significant, but the Browns have more. And their offensive line, Deshaun Watson's been sacked 18 times this year, 8 by the Giants. And the Giants came in, thought of the same way Carolina was when they came into Vegas. I mean, the Giants were on death's door, about to go 0-3, and they played great. And Lincoln, what I did when I looked at the tape and went back, all of those sacks, the most of them came from the interior, which means that Deshaun Watson's not comfortable if he can't set his feet and throw forward in the pocket there. I would just think he'd run away from it, but he doesn't have the confidence that they have. So what do you expect from Deshaun Watson in this game with an offensive line that's beat up?
Well, I'm hoping that he has a bad game because I'm tired of geriatric quarterbacks, having fun with us. Matt Ryan a couple years ago when he came with Indianapolis, we saw how the Raiders did last week, Andy Dalton. So I'm hoping that he has a bad game. But the thing is that if you're the Raiders right now, I know you're turning your attention to Cleveland. Cleveland is a beatable team, but you have so much internally that you need to work on. It's hard for me to take the shine off of what needs to be done with the team first, if that makes sense. This game is when you look at the first month, and you mentioned to it in your opening, you look at the first month of football with this team and you look at the schedule. I was scratching my head, how are they going to come out of it? How possibly did not give them a chance really to go back and beat in Baltimore, mainly because we had not had success in Baltimore, and especially coming off the heels of that Chargers game, like, oh my goodness, Lamar Jackson is going to run all over us. But the defense did so well. The Raiders were so fortunate to come away with a win. I thought that would build in some progress or some overall confidence for them this past week against Carolina, and they didn't do it. They didn't get it done in all 3 phases, to be honest with you. And so it was really a disappointment. So I'm hoping the Raiders can bounce back against Cleveland, a beatable team that's really on its hands and knees, but kick them while they're down. That's what I want to see. I want to see this team develop an attitude to keep its foot on the gas, even when they know they got a team down by 20 points. I haven't seen that yet. I want to see that come alive.
Yeah, that's a really good point when you talk about the schedule when it came out. The Baltimore game, Carolina looked like a gimme. I said it, and I'm not running from what I said. That was the only game on the schedule that you can't lose is Carolina. You're going to lose games. You're going to win games. I don't know who they're going to beat or lose to, but the one game I knew they'd have to win or should win was Carolina. Well, that didn't happen, and on top of it, it was a home opener. So everything that could go wrong went wrong. That's why I expect the Raiders to bounce back. I mean, it is different around here this week. This head coach is not happy. He's going to get into these players here, and they're going to have a big week of practice. But I think the defensive line, because I don't know what Max is going to look like on game day. He's going to do everything he can to get ready. Will he have the push? Will he be able to have that first fast step, which is a big part of his game? But I know what we can get out of Christian Wilkins, who's similar to what the Giants have up front in a great player. And then we mentioned Tyree Wilson again, Isaiah Palomal on the back end. But I'm going to stay with you on the defensive line. You know, John Jenkins, some of these guys who are known for being just run stuffers or from time to time can get home. Enough of that. I mean, we got to have 3 guys out of the 4, Lincoln, on this defensive line have a career game, have a big game, because this is coming off the home opener in a must-win situation.
And that's totally agree. It is definitely a must win, but you're playing a style of defense that is bent on taking the short stuff away, because I know that I got pass rushers that can get to you. Now, Max Crosby's not 100%, and we're seeing more and more teams double team and triple team, which means, in my opinion, JT, someone's got to rise up.
Yeah.
Someone else has to be accounted for. And whether it's Tyree Wilson or whoever, it's not Malcolm Cooks. We know he's injured. Somebody else has got to rise up. Now, I will say this. And watching the first couple of games, I thought that Adam Butler and John Jenkins and those guys in the interior, as well as Wilkins, were doing a good job. You just need more out of them, because your pass coverage, your pass defense can't hold up for as long as you want. And we saw this last game against Andy Dalton, the middle was wide open for the entire day. For some reason, it was wide open, and the Carolina Panthers picked us apart. You know Deshaun Watson is going to want to do the same thing.
Well, Lincoln, the Browns have been a Jekyll and Hyde team, and they've been struggling on the road. When you look at their defense here, they allow an average of 12 more points per game on the road than compared to at home. I mean, this is a remarkable stat sheet, and if you're listening on radio, they're giving up 27.8 on the road, only 15.8. And then the other one that jumps out is the rushing yards that they're giving up. 90 at home, 123 on the road. So, but I mean, I need to see this, Lincoln, and talk about it with you, but I almost throw it out. I look at the first 4 games of the year, every year, and I look at the stats and I say, whatever you are, the first 2 or 3 games, you're not going to be that team week 15, 16, 17. And if you are, they're troubles, because this league is starting off so slow. This league has got so many injuries. This league has so many good teams playing poorly. So I have too much respect for Cleveland, because about a year or 2 ago, I think Stefanski got that team to the playoff level that could win playoff games, and they're supposed to be a Super Bowl contender in that division. And I talked to a fan who's a season ticket holder yesterday who said he doesn't even recognize this team from 6 weeks ago. This is not the product that they were supposed to put out on the field.
Well, if you're the Raiders and in the mindset, I'm like you. I'm throwing out all those stats, all those numbers, because they don't mean anything. You're still trying to find yourself. We're about to play our 4th game in a month, the first game of the first month of the season. And usually by this time, I would say I can generally pick out what a team's identity is. I know who they are. This is what they do. I can't say that about the Raiders. I know the defense is stingy. I know the special teams are special. But overall, where are you as a team? If your offense can't hold up its weight, even the poorest offenses that I've seen have defenses that won Super Bowls, who are able to get first downs, were able to generate points. You had a team in Carolina Panthers last week that came in and only scored 13 points in their first 2. They put up 30 plus on us. You're not there yet. So you can't quantify with the stats where they are. You need to find out about yourself. That's why I'm of the mindset, simplify everything and let me see how you do the smallest things well over and over again before I try to expand this playbook on either side of the ball.
Yeah, that means a lot coming from you, because you've been there and you've seen it. And if you continue to preach that you got to simplify this, the last one I'll ask you is, it says to me that they're going to try to run it again. Everything says in front of me on the stat sheet that the Raiders are going to look at this and say, all right, guys, it hasn't worked. We had a good practice this week. We're going to run it again and give it a chance. And you heard the boo birds, and you saw running into the pile on 2nd and 9. I don't know if that's going to work in this game. It's just going to give Cleveland a time to set their defense, to know that the Raiders like to run it up the middle instead of taking shots. So we'll see, Lincoln, but everything tells me that the Raiders are going to try to run the ball again with this matchup.
This offense is predicated on the run. It has to have some semblance of the run, because it opens up the play action. It opens up the ability to take some shots downfield. If you don't do that, if you become one-dimensional, here's what teams did, and this is what Carolina did last week. They brought a safety down in the box. because it said you're not going to pass, and we know that you're not going to have enough feel comfortable enough to time to take a pass. That's what was so surprising when the safety made the error that he did on Trey Tucker's long pass to deep route. But after that, they took it away. Chargers did the same thing on the deep dig routes with Devontae Adams. We played the Chargers. They had a safety sitting right in that hole, in that crossing route. They took it away. What we didn't make adjustments for on the other side of the ball offense is we didn't take away their deep balls and then put the pressure on our offense to have to score. And that's what I'm talking about. The offense has got to hold up their end of the bargain. They've got to run the football and find a way to establish it.
Man, you and Rich Gannon finish each other's sentence here because you were so great together. And as we talk about this, you're right. When you just told our audience of the safety coming there, Gannon talks about all the great weapons we have on the outside in Devontae and Trey Tucker. You can't use it. You can't use it if you can't set up the run because they're going to sit there with two safeties high and they're just going to dare you to throw it. And even with the weapons that the Raiders have, they can't fulfill their destiny with the passing game until they get some semblance of the rush game going.
That's exactly right.
All right, Lincoln. Appreciate you as always. Safe travels out here to Vegas. Look forward to seeing you.
Thanks, buddy. I'll see you. See you soon.
You got it. That's Lincoln Kennedy. Always a tremendous segment. And as he talks about simplifying it, we got to do it. We got to make it simple. Run 4 plays. Lincoln's talking about running 2 plays to the right and 2 plays to the left. That's what he means by simplifying it. I'm all for that. But the offensive line's got to do a better job. If the offensive line, if Colton Miller, Dylan Parham, good to see JPJ out there. Man, he's a Raider. He wants to be out there and play at a very high level. Andre James, and depending the health on the right side with Thayer Mumford and DJ Glaze, guys got to get off the snap count. They got to know and anticipate it, not jump off sides and bury someone in front of them. Let's take a look at our weekly lineup here, the morning tailgate. These times are Pacific time, 7 to 10 a.m. The Rich Eisen Show, 10 a.m. to noon. I'm on from noon to 2 every day. And then Q Myers, who's going to join us here in a little bit, he's on from 2 to 5 p.m. It's a great flagship station because we got great cooperation from this building, getting players, legends. I'm going to have Frosty Rucker on next hour on the radio broadcast. You can listen on the Raiders mobile app, but we appreciate you following us on YouTube and what we're doing here on all the Raider platforms. There's plenty of them out there. The head coach, Antonio Pierce, also this hour.
Now, if you from Oakland, if you from Los Angeles, or if you from Las Vegas, Nevada,
looking like I'm going to a Raider game. No, I'm not the only one doing it like this since we was hella young.
There's no better day than a day like today, when all we have in common becomes the Raider way. The pride from our culture and the poise is in our DNA. From Oakland to LA, now Las Vegas is on display. Our passion ain't no mystery. We've been representing since 1960.
Las Vegas, let me hear you holler. Oakland, California, all the way through Nevada. Yeah, it's a blackout. Knock the lights out. I'm in the stands, pull the mic out.
We're not just one city, we're one nation. It's a silver and black thing. You know what's up. When you see the shield, it's time to pull up.
To be a Raider is to be bold, powerful, and loyal.
Once a Raider, always a Raider.
Raider Nation family is authentic, with the heart here in Las Vegas. We are often imitated, but can never be duplicated. Why?
The autumn wind is a Raider.
Because there is only one nation.
We welcome in head coach Antonio Pierce. So, Coach, you had strong words after the game at Allegiant Stadium. Strong words this week. How have the players reacted to your message?
Good. Very direct. We're open. We're honest. And we're looking forward to moving on.
You bounce from meeting to meetings. We've talked about this with the offensive line, the scheme overall, how they're playing. We're expecting a big week going into Cleveland.
Yeah, we are. We know we got to get better. It hasn't been good for 3 weeks now. I can talk about it. I can tell you what we're going to do. At the end of the day, we got to get on the grass today at practice and throughout the week. And we got to do it on Sundays, and that's all that matters.
Eric Allen had a really good point on one of our shows. He said that this is a week for the practice squad players and some of the reserves to really have big practices as they simulate Cleveland. Do you expect that more physicality from those guys who want to step up and prove to you they're ready to go?
Yeah, I'm going to run the scout team. So I'll be running scout team for our offense with the look team on defense. So I'm sure we'll get a good look.
Good. I want to get into Cleveland and some of their alphas, Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy. So they seem to be the targets that they're going to when they can get their passing game going and how you can defend them.
Yeah, I mean, really good. Obviously, we know Cooper, right? Former Raider and really good player. Had just a hell of a career. Ton of respect for what he's able to do. And we know Jeudy, right? He's been in our division really well. So, I mean, it comes down. Those guys are vertical guys that can make plays on the ball, big-time receivers in this National Football League. And it's just key that we were able to disrupt them, give Deshaun, obviously, different looks, and we got to disrupt them as well.
Deshaun's been sacked 16 times this year. The Giants got him for 8. A lot of that in the interior, and their offensive line is banged up. So I'm sure that's going to be what Coach Stefanski is talking about, trying to keep that O-line together.
Yeah, it's smart. I mean, so if you got a banged up O-line, what do you do?
Right.
Probably run the ball.
Yeah.
Right? You got to run the ball, protection, play action, things of that nature that we're expecting. But we'll see as the game goes on. But, per usual, like I can't really focus on what they're doing. We have so much stuff that we have to clean up from last week and the details and the effort and execution that we have to do. So that's going to be our main focus along with game planning.
We know how big of a warrior that Max is, and so is Myles Garrett. So he's banged up, and he's going to go. You have two of the best, I think, top 3 to 4 players in all of football on defense playing in that building.
Yeah, you'll get your money's worth this week, right? You got Max out there on one side, on the other side of the ball, you got Myles Garrett. I think just respect for what Myles has been able to do throughout his career. Each and every play, he kind of comes the same way Max does, right? He's giving you full-blown effort, the power, the physicality, the things he's able to do for that D-line. He gets them going, no different than our guy, and I love that we have 98 on our team. And you saw the warrior mentality out there last week. He gave us everything he had.
The mentality of Jack Jones and Nate Hobbs coming off that game against Carolina, those are guys who play with a lot of pride, and they wear their emotions on their sleeves. When you talk to them, those are the two type of players that could have big games against Deshaun Watson. How are they feeling?
Oh, they're good. I mean, listen, like I said, we watched the film, we watched it, we washed it, we got to move on, and it's on to a new week. So we need to have a really good practice week, need to be focused, attention to details per usual, right? Attention to details, your technique matters, especially at those positions against those key receivers we're going against.
Robert Spillane here, one more game at 10-plus tackles, and we're talking an historic moment for him in Raider history. I'm just so excited about him, his body language. I was watching him during the game. He's standing right next to you. I mean, he can't wait to get out there and make plays for you.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, sometimes I miss coaching linebackers because, you got a guy like that with that energy, that passion, that love for the game. And all he's done since he's been a Raider is given us his all. Mm-hmm. We talk about Max and his effort and his passion. Well, Spill's right there with him. And more importantly, he is an extension from Patrick Graham, myself, onto the field. And what he's been able to do in these first 3 games, I think, is really outstanding because from a coverage standpoint, from blitzing, from stopping the run, and again, it hasn't been pretty for us, but really, if 41's not on the play, it's probably not a good play for the Raiders. No different than 98. So it's been really fun to watch. We really got to keep leaning on him as we go forward throughout the season.
Coach, I want to talk about opportunity. Normally we talk about the team here, but there's 2 players that have a really good opportunity here in Isaiah Palomal and Tyree Wilson. To have an opportunity to show that not only are they players who can play at any time you're calling them, but they could have big monster games, have some turnovers, and be a difference in a game.
Listen, we drafted Tyree in the 7th overall in last year's draft for a reason, right? The potential is there. And again, it's slowly and surely coming along, and this would be a great opportunity again for him. Just keep getting more reps. He just needs reps, right? Keep getting out there. But Isaiah's probably the opposite. Isaiah's got a lot of hidden reps since he's been a rookie. If you've watched, even his rookie season, he started in some dime situations, played a little weak side linebacker for us as well. And he's been a tremendous player in the last, half a season for us on special teams. So now he has a great opportunity. Sad that we lost Marcus Epps. That's the nature of the beast, and we're wishing him well in his recovery. But this is a great opportunity for Isaiah Palomal, right? In year 3, he's been in the system now. He understands it well. He's made plays when he's had opportunities, and now he has a full game the rest of the season to do that.
I was seeing in my notes on red zone touchdowns, 5 of 7. That's 4th in the entire league. You got to really be excited about that. You want more opportunities in the red zone, but what's working there? Spreading teams out and being really efficient down there.
Yeah, really credit to our offense. I mean, if there's one bright spot right now, it's been our red zone, to be honest. We got down here, love to have more opportunities, but that was the emphasis in the spring, carried over in training camp, and then obviously in the preseason. And those guys have made plays, right? And you've seen the quarterbacks, too, also extend plays and do a good job of keeping their eyes down the field and not taking negative plays. We just need more opportunities, right? It's all about early downs and moving. Once we get to that 50-yard line, we got to continue those drives with first downs.
I think it's important to tell the fans how both your quarterbacks pull for each other. Aiden came in, had a touchdown. Gardner struggled at times, but had some big games, especially with this completion percentage. What's that been like? Because fans are always talking about who's up next and all of that, but you got two guys that pull for each other and help each other.
Look, we've been dealing with this since we signed Gardner, right? It's been A or B. And we decided to go with Gardner, and Gardner's rolling. And the way the game went, I said, you know what, let's see Aiden for this last drive or so. And I thought Aiden did a tremendous job because it's difficult to go in the game, right? The way it wasn't in our favor. We'd be like, oh, shucks us. But he went out there and they drove the ball down the field. It was really good to see him execute and just to get out there. But I think to really look at the response, if you could, go back and look at our sideline and watch Gardner respond when he threw that touchdown. Being a pro is being a great teammate. And that's what we need more of. And again, I know AP, what you're going to do, it doesn't even matter. We're going to do what's best for the Raiders. And it's good to have two guys at that position where it can get ugly at times, really root for one another.
Coach, one more scheme thing when it comes to your wide receivers blocking downfield on the running game. The running game hasn't got going. When you look at the film, you got some nasty blockers, especially in Jacoby, that can really open this up. Do you feel like once Samir and Madison pops outside, these guys, Big Mike and Bowers, are going to finish some people off so we can see some 30, 50-yard runs?
Yeah, no, we'd love to see that. I mean, I'm not going to get into my numbers game. I've been doing the last couple weeks. Hasn't worked out for me, but the guy that has really stepped up in the run game, we know Jacoby. We know what he can do. Trey Tucker.
Yeah.
Littlest guy on the field, right? And he's in there throwing everything he got. I mean, week one against Derwin James, he goes in there, whack. And you see him go up against linebackers. But, here's a guy that can run 4-2 down the field for a 50-yard gain and go in there and, dig out a safety or a linebacker. It's really critical that, just overall in our running game, all 11 are balled in, and we're seeing it, and we're executing at a high level. And, again, it's got to be a 1-2 there, and that's something we're going to continue to work on.
I wanted to end on that player because he had a big game, and you love the deep shot. Even if it's incomplete, it sends a message to the other side that we're going to take our shot.
Yeah, we did. We took two of them. We connected on one. We wish we had the other one, game of inches, right? And we missed it. And maybe that changes the game again. Another opportunity for us to make a play and change the tide of a game that wasn't going away from the jump. But I think with Trey, not even just as a receiver, in the return game, and we'll love to see him get going in that phase. Yeah. Last week maybe had one opportunity there that we could have took a shot, but we fair caught it, and that was part of the game plan. I get it, but this is another week where we say, listen, if we get an opportunity, we got space between their punt team and 11, I'm going to bank on 11 every time. We saw it in the preseason, right?
Yeah,
we even saw it with McAllister, for example. So there's going to be opportunities there each and every week. We got to do a good job of scheming it up and obviously blocking for our players.
I'm going to end with the fans, as we always do. They showed up for you last week.
Man.
That place we did the pregame show with the torch. I've never seen it like that. There will be more Cleveland fans this week than more Carolina fans. So I think your fans are going to come in with even a bigger edge for this game.
Yeah, listen, if there's one thing that was more disappointing in the game, it was just letting the fans down. I mean, we talked about it, me and you on this show. Our players spoke to them. I looked in the camera and spoke. And if there was one thing that hurt was that, because since I've been here as a linebacker coach and then interim, then as a head coach, that was by far the greatest turnout. Electric. It felt playoff-like atmosphere. And they did everything they could. They were in all the way until halftime, and we heard everything they heard. They had every right to boo because we didn't put up the performance that we needed as coaches and players, and it was a team effort of poor execution. But all I'll say is, man, it's a long season. That was one. We got 7 more of these. And again, I'll just keep asking you, show up, and then we don't have to show out. We need to show up as well, right? Before we show out, we need to show up. And this will be a great week to do it.
Good luck, Coach.
Thank you.
he had to go to Cleveland. I just remember how cold it was.
Cold. It was freezing.
And the Raiders are in very, very difficult position.
And we look at their bench, and we keep thinking they're going to kick, and that's going to be it, and we're going to lose. Well, they go back for one more pass.
The red slot right affects the 88.
And I don't blame the play call. Cockcroft, we already missed 2 extra points. They're afraid he's going to miss a field goal.
With Cleveland needing only a field goal, the Browns appear to be in the driver's seat. Logan to the left, Rucker to the right. Sipe is going back to pass, wants to take a shot into the end zone. He looks, he throws, and it's a great play that may have been intercepted, and the Cleveland Browns called on chutzpah once too often. Holy Toledo!
Well, that was one of the greatest plays in the history of the Raiders. Red Right, 88, the late, great Mike Davis made the play, and I think the Raiders need some big plays coming up here as we get going. Q Myers joins us from Raider Nation Radio, a great Raider insider, also ESPN Radio. And Q, good segue. We need a big play coming up in this series.
Yes, the Raiders need a big play. The defense is what the heart and soul of this team is supposed to be. That's what we saw in Costa Mesa. That's what we expected going into the season. It would be nice to see a couple big plays by the Raiders coming up on Sunday.
You just came from downstairs and you asked a lot of questions to Coach. What was your sense of his body language, his energy, and dealing with the media after strong comments after the game Sunday?
Well, he said that, business decisions that had to be made by the team were made, but they're in-house. So I'm expecting to see a couple changes in the lineup come Sunday. Well, I don't know what that is, right? He didn't specify. He said it was in-house, talked to the players. So that was one step. And then also, he had a lot of energy. He had a lot of energy, and he said, look, it's only week 3, right? There's 3 games in the book, so the sky's not falling. They're not jumping off the train. They're not looking for their parachute to jump out of the plane or anything, but it's time to get back to work.
You and I were there at the Torch doing radio, and the fans. That was one of the best fan days I could remember because not only did you not have a lot of Carolina fans there, but it was also the first game of the year. So fans were coming. And I think you'd agree, there were a lot of fans that came for the first time. I met a lot of parents like, my daughter's first game, whatever. That's what was so disappointing that they had no juice.
Right, exactly. That was the thing because the fan base brought the juice. And Raider Nation always brings the juice, but it did feel special. And I met so many people that said, this is my son's first game. This is my first game. The stadium is amazing. It's beautiful. Can't wait to see the Raiders go out there and, put their performance together and beat the Panthers. And can't wait to walk out of here celebrating. And, you just anticipate that. And so that's another reason why it was so disappointing because there was, and you saw it, EA saw it, everyone saw it, how excited and fired up the fan base was. Unfortunately, the team didn't come out with that same energy.
You were downstairs again and also asked a big question about Marcus Epps and the significance of that injury. What did the coach say?
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing for him not to be on the field as the player, but he also is a big-time communicator, right? And so that was the thing, and AP has told us so many times how much he is responsible for lining guys up and even helping out with Robert Spillane. And Patrick Graham has said Spillane and Epps are the guys that he communicates with, the guys that are kind of the coaches on the field. And so someone has to take that spot. So now Isaiah Palamao, he's going to be responsible. Trayvon Merrick is going to be responsible. But JT, when there's a big-time communicator, a guy who can get you lined up and get everyone calm and ready to go, and then he's not there, it's a little concerning at times.
I'm happy you mentioned Isaiah Palamao. That's the type of player that I wanted to see play more.
Yeah.
And he's going to play now. And it's really important that he gets up to speed because I think he knows the playbook as good as anybody.
Yeah.
But they can't be conservative with him at staring 1-3 down if they don't win. So considering that Cleveland's not running it well, they have 2 great receivers. I mean, potential great receivers. Amari Cooper's a great receiver. Sure. Jerry Jeudy could be. I think on the back end, those guys are going to want to take some deep shots.
They are. And the thing I love about Isaiah's game is he's always around the ball. Always around the ball. He almost came up with an interception on Sunday against the Panthers. I mean, that dive-in play he made in the end zone, something about him, and it's funny, Vinny Bonsignore, our colleague, he identified him in practice a couple of training camps ago, and he said, man, just watch number 20, something about 20, and every time I watched, the ball found him. It's like certain guys, and you've been around the organization for a long time, certain guys have that knack to get to the ball. You want to talk about make plays. Isaiah's a guy that can make plays.
Well, the Browns secondary is typically their strength, and you cover them nationally when you see what they've done under Stefanski and the entire defense. There's supposed to be a defense that's built from Myles Garrett in the front, and he's banged up. But on the back end, they've had some ball hawks the last couple of years.
Yeah, they really have. Newsome is fantastic, right? I mean, they've got some guys on the back end that just make plays, and I think that they built that defense really well. The one thing I will say, though, like you mentioned, Myles Garrett being banged up, Zadarius Smith is on the other side. He's a little little bit older as well, and he's not really getting off to the same start as usual. It's not really the Cleveland Browns team that I'm used to seeing. They do still make plays, but they haven't made as many consistent plays this upcoming year.
I would agree, and I mentioned a fan earlier in there. One of my good friends is a Brown fan, and he says he just doesn't recognize this team.
Yeah.
6 weeks ago, coming out of camp, they looked to be at the level of the Ravens. I thought better than the Steelers, and the Steelers are undefeated now here, but they come in also, Q, in a must-win situation.
Yeah.
Carolina played pretty well in a must-win situation. And getting back to the Raiders, how did Andy Dalton pick them apart so easy on those slants? We're only talking about 6-7 yard in routes that went for 25, 30 yards.
The middle of the field was wide open.
Yeah.
It was really wide open, and that really blew my mind. That's a communication thing, right? I mean, just knowing where you're supposed to be, alignment, assignment, and it wasn't there. And it just sitting in the press box watching it, and it looked like Andy Dalton was like a hot knife and butter, just kind of slicing and dicing the Raiders' defense up, and I didn't expect to see that. So it really blew my mind. They've got to be on their keys. We know it starts with the defensive line. Max wasn't 100% last week. He's not going to be 100% this week. Who can step up and get pressure on the quarterback? If you can get pressure on the quarterback, you can make plays on the back end.
All right, let's get into the quarterback, because Coach was here with me a little while ago, and he wasn't going to bite on that. They're not going to talk about who's going to start. I said this on our flagship station. I said, if you need a spark desperately, go with the quarterback change. If you don't need that spark, you might need it 3 weeks from now.
Right.
If Minshew can win this game and you need a spark in week 7, you got Aiden to go. What do you think the decision process is in this building at the quarterback position?
I mean, I think that they really feel that Minshew is the best guy for the job right now. And I'll say this, going back to the Baltimore game at halftime when they were only down 9-6, I thought that was a time when maybe they needed to have that spark that you're talking about. They stuck with Minshew. Max gave him that pep talk, and it clearly worked. And so I believe that they're going to stick with him. I believe that they're very comfortable with where he's at. I heard Max Crosby talking about him. Gardner's our guy. Devontae said you don't want to have the quarterback on eggshells. If he makes a mistake, he's going to get yanked. And he also made a good point about, what does that tell Aiden? If all of a sudden Aiden gets switched in after 3 games because it's not going well, what's going to happen if it doesn't go well for him after 3 games?
Some of the stats are tricking me here. Listen to this one. The Raiders have scored touchdowns on 5-7 red zone. That's 71.4%. And the Raiders here are averaging 244.7 yards per game. That's 4th in the entire league. And it really just feels like it's off one quarter in Baltimore.
Right. It's so funny. I mean, just looking at the stats, I mean, you can go back to week 1 against the Chargers. Like, Minshew's completion percentage has been very high. Everyone's calling into the radio station saying, oh, he's one of the best completion percentage guys. But the yards aren't really effective yards, right? And they haven't got to the red zone enough. I mean, 7 trips. Right, they need to get to the red zone more times than that. But it's funny the way that you can look at stats and you can kind of dance them up to make them look the way that you really want them to. The Raiders just need to go out and they need to play the kind of football offensively where they're able to sustain a 10-play drive, a 7-minute drive. Like that 97-yard drive that they had against Carolina. I thought, okay, here it comes. That's what it's about, and it didn't happen again.
You make a great point. I've been saying this. The pressure on 3rd down, because they can't run it for now to pass it, 6 or 7 yards. You get a deflected ball or an incompletion, and you go 3 and out, you might not get back on the field for 6 or 7 minutes.
Right, exactly. I mean, just think about coming out of the locker room against Carolina, right? They get the ball first, it's a 3 and out. Then all of a sudden, Carolina gets the ball back, and I thought then, if they had a chance to come back, it probably just left the building right there.
It did. Finally, I don't predict games, but I think I'm smart enough to say this is a must-win. If I've ever seen it in the 4th game of the year. I mean, the season can go one of 2 ways here. And I know the Raiders are going to win games and get healthier later in the year, but 2-2 looks good. If they can get out of there, go sleep in their own beds after the game, drive home with their family and say, let's just pause for a couple of days and get back in the building, 2-2, all Raider Nation would take that.
Yeah, 2-2 and 2 AFC conference wins. Right, that's the important thing right there. Is that, I mean, the first 9 games that they have, 7 of them are against the AFC. They've already lost 1 AFC game against the Chargers, but they picked up 1 win against Baltimore. So now if you can beat Cleveland, and I do think they have a really good shot at winning this game, now you feel pretty good because, look, you're still in a good position if down the stretch of the season you're looking and trying to jockey for wild card position. You need those conference wins more than anything.
Well, you do a great job on the radio, but you do a lot of planning for our flagship station as we take a look at the lineup coming up here. What do you like what's going on now? We have what I think is one of the premier lineups in all of sports radio, and the fact that we get to be in this building and be at the facility every day.
I love it. I love it, the fact that we're here. We have the coverage. We're able to provide Raider Nation who deserves the coverage, right? right?
Yeah.
I mean, you've been covering the team, been talking about the team longer than anyone, and it hasn't been able to have that wall-to-wall coverage like we have now. I like the addition of Vince Sapienza to the morning show. I think he's brought a lot of juice. Yeah. Obviously, you're holding it down the midday, and then all I have to do is take it home, right? Don't crash the car.
You got to drive it. Thanks for coming up here, and you're just sensing like I do. This is a big Sunday.
Yeah,
and the fans deserve some payback.
They do, and the other thing is Antonio Pierce has talked about getting off to that hot start in the first quarter of the season. This is the quarter mark, so you got to get out. You got to get out of the first quarter with that win.
You could tell that downstairs when he walked in the room.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we thank Q Myers for coming in. When we come back, we jump off for Raiders YouTube. We go to mine at JT the Brick YT, and we're on Raider Nation Radio, as you know, exclusive radio there. Frosty Rucker will join us at the bottom of the hour. Vinny Bonsignor coming up here, and we're going to continue on. Thanks for watching Raiders Rundown on the YouTube page of the Raiders. All of our programming, including this interview with Q Myers, you can find in podcast form at Raiders.com.